Thank you for joining our webinar today. As you are joining us, please let us know in the chat box where in the world you're joining us from. Also, let us know what you're looking forward to from today's webinar. Now, as some of you would know, today this is our Opening the Inner Eye series webinar. And today's discussion is about lasting change and turning compassion into action. I want to introduce Gayatri, who is a Coacharya alumni. We have two Coacharya alumni today on our webinar, and Gayatri will shortly be introducing the panelists, and then you will come to know. So we have Gayatri here with us today, and she is a PCC and leadership coach, and she, as some of our regular attendees would know, she is usually the one who leads this Opening the Inner Eye series. Now, before we go into the webinar discussion, I would like to quickly announce that apart from all our level programs, the level accredited programs, there are two programs that you can check out. One is the ICF Level 2 plus ACTC, which is happening with Cindy and Ram. So this program, apart from your Level 2, which is the PCC credential, this program will also help you prepare for the ACTC credential, so you can become a team coach and coach teams. The other program is the Advanced Mentor Coach Training Program, which is being led by Cindy. Now, if anybody here wants to be a mentor coach and learn how to imbibe those mentoring qualities, you must definitely check this program out. I also want to mention a level program starting soon. This one is starting in May itself, and it will be led by Tracy. Some of you might remember her from our Coacharya Trainers Showcase webinar and our recently concluded ICW webinar series. So if anybody here is looking to start their coaching journey, then you must check this program out soon. And yes, that's it from my side. With that, Gayatri, over to you.
Hi. So, obviously this is a program in the series of, opening the inner eye. And this particular program, we're talking about the courage, the humility that is needed to open the inner eye, and talking to two people who have done a lot of work, which has had a lot of social impact. So I'm extremely happy to have Brinda Adige and Doris with us. So Brinda is a well-known figure in not only Bangalore, but all over, and many of you might have seen her in the conference in November. So Brinda is, of course, a feisty lady who started this organization called Makhal Sahaya, which was a helpline for children. And she told me that she's just come back from a remote place where she was involved in freeing some bonded labor. So she does something which is, amazingly impact. To begin with, she was actually a ticket collector with Indian Railways, and a lot of pressure on people to keep such a government job, as you can imagine, but she took a risk and started in this area. And apart from that Makhal Sahaya, she has a company called Global Concerns India, and being an NGO, one would think that she's always only thinking of helping, but she has very strong business development skills and the ability to work with the civil government and other ministerial people and all, and handle all those difficult relationships. So if you thought your boss was difficult, try talking to a civic employee. Welcome, Brinda.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure Doris, being here today.
Thank you for your time. Doris is, in this series, you're the first person from outside India, and I'm so glad to have you here. Doris is based in Accra. She's a PCC, and like Yamini said, she's a Coacharya alumni, and she's founder of Crescendo Consulting. Now, the unique thing about Doris is her background is in absolute, hardcore accounting and financing. And she does a lot of work in empowering people to take charge of their finances. Whereas when we talk from, from our heart, open the inner eye and all, if you don't have a roof over your head, you can, all the open eyes don't do anything. And she's done a lot of work in that. So welcome. Brinda, would you like to add anything else that people should know about you?
Thank you.
I'm fine, thank you.
Doris, just add a little bit more about yourself.
I'm happy to be here. I think the only context I would like to add is that you look at the population of India and you look at the population of Ghana, and it's like a drop in the ocean. And so I'm happy to be here to be exposed to the richness and diversity that India offers.
Yeah, and I think this whole multitude can learn from a small country like yours with a person like you doing so much work, to empower people. So, welcome.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to start with Brinda and ask her about. See, you have faced many difficulties in work, which to people like me look insurmountable. How do you deal with a corrupt, or at least on the face of it, a corrupt government, tough employers, and situations where you may even put yourself at risk? So how have you faced those difficulties, and what has been your mindset in doing that?
I think over the years, I have learned that there is no harm in approaching anybody. At the most, they would say no, or they will ask us to get out. Now, that is not so earth shattering. And I learned from my mother, as well as my grandmother, that people are inherently good. And there is always that goodness that one must awaken and probably invoke. And I very strongly believe in the universe. So there are many times that I'm talking to myself. Like if I'm going into a office room or somewhere, I would tell that, I've heard that this man is a very kind person. I hope his kindness continues as long as I'm sitting there in the office and get my work done. Or there are times that I'm just talking out loud to say that I have heard that this person is someone who only listens to people who come with different kind of clout and influence. Now I have nothing over here except the case in front of me that requires immediate attention. So press upon this person to listen to me and do the needful at the earliest. So words are very powerful. Almost all religion, all spirituality talks to you about how powerful words are. And I have now got used to that. So also this whole thing about defeat, there's nothing called defeat. There is always another day. And like my mother told me, at the most, they might tell you no or ask you to get out. And you just come back again inside and ask the same thing. How many times can they tell you to get out?
Yeah, but the kind of work you do, is there a possibility of, I feel it's fearful. How do you overcome that fear? Because, they may say no, I can go back. But if they hurt me, what will I do? I'm just saying sometimes that can be a emotion which comes up.
From a very young age, I have learned not to fear anybody. The only thing that I have learned from my mother and my grandmother is to fear myself when I'm probably lying, or I am dishonest, or I have said something wrong about another person. Then I should fear that I am not being able to live up to the values and live up to what I have been taught to be this person. So fearing somebody, fearing something, now that you ask me, I, I am afraid. I'm afraid that somebody might get hurt. I might be harmed. My family would get hurt. And there have been instances in the past when these kind of intimidation or threats have come. It's not that it hasn't come. And, the first thing they would do is malign character.
Wow.
And that is something that happens quite often. But I must say that I have a very strong, fantastic family that supports by me and knows who I am. The other thing is, again, I have learned not to fear any kind of reprisal from anybody out there. Well, who are they to tell me whether I'm good or bad, or that I'm not a nice person, that I may not really go to heaven? So these are things that at the end of the day, I am my worst critic. I would ask myself, what I did today, was it right or wrong? Did I hurt and harm somebody? I may have been aggressive to someone, but was it something to get something in return for somebody else, as well as my own point of view? Then I think that was what was the response that was supposed to have been. So this whole thing about fear is not so much fearing somebody who might say something bad about me. In fact, sometimes if you go to court, the defense lawyer asks terrible questions. And then you wonder whether you should respond to such questions or not, because it is just character assassination and maligning you. But everybody, even the judge allows the person to ask such a question. So in my mind, I have, what should I say, centered myself. So a lot of it has to be with learning and growing within and outside. Centered myself to say, this person is so insecure, so he asks a question of this nature. It's up to me how I want to respond to that. So that's what.
Fantastic. I think
that's where
a lot of coaching, principles. One, I caught on to two. One is, you fear your own deception, not somebody else. So you need to be true to yourself, and you are validating yourself. You're not depending on someone else's validation. And I think it's very important for us and the people we deal with. Thank you, Brinda. Let me come to Doris. And the first question is that, financial empowerment often requires internal shift before the external changes occur. So can you share an example when you help someone open their inner eyes to limiting beliefs about money, and what happened, what transpired? Can you share an example and take us through this process? Doris, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I didn't realize that.
That's okay.
Yes, beliefs are very powerful when it comes to our financial well-being. Let me put it that way. You see that almost everybody that you meet out there on the street is looking to be financially free, which is something I'm very passionate to promote through learning experiences. And you'd also see that when it comes to access to financial well-being, there's a certain limitation such that people who are already poor tend not to be included. Where the belief comes in is an individual who believes, and that's the example I want to put on the table today, who believes that they were born into a poor family. And because they were born into a poor family, it is not possible for them to break out of poverty. This person is thinking about the fact that for me to be able to break out of poverty, I need to have money as capital, which money as capital I'm able to use to start a business or to invest in some venture so that that capital will multiply for me to grow steadily out of poverty. Now, you see where the belief comes in is that in their upbringing, childhood, they've been exposed to lack. They've been exposed to need. They do not understand how to think abundance. They do not appreciate the fact that every human being that you meet is in need. Appreciate the fact that the universe is for them and is working for them. working with them to succeed. And so for somebody like this one person, in fact, a number of people I've worked with who have this belief, it's not possible. And people typically in that state also find it difficult to invest towards that financial knowledge and exposure, which will help them unpack more of the limiting beliefs. Now, when you introduce them to the fact that the universe is actually working for and with them, when you introduce them to the fact that the people around them are inherently good and are happy to extend a hand of help to support them, it takes some action. So you see them moving from a place where they are paralyzed by this belief. And so they just keep to themselves. They are staying at home. As they begin to embrace the belief that the world out there, the entire universe is for them and is going to work with them for them to be better, they are empowered to move out of that inertia, that state of paralysis, to step out there, to talk to somebody. And I have instances where I've worked with somebody who said, without the capital, because I'm poor, I can't start business. We've had introductions where somebody guarantees that based on this person's character, I can vouch for them, and they've been supplied goods on credit, out of which they start a business, which goes on to thrive, and they break out of the poverty. So when it comes to our mindset and our beliefs about money, it's the very foremost thing that we want to tackle. And like you rightly said, it's something that's also on the inside, not even on the outside. And you need to tackle how you believe, how you think about money first before you will now move into action, engaging with the rest of the world.
That resonates with what Brinda said about universe is for us and it is abundant. It's
Yes.
not that just because you have it, I won't have it or otherwise. So thank you. So Brinda, let me come back to you. Of course, you mentioned a lot about how you overcome your fear and what are your beliefs. And you also unafraid to speak truth even with people who are very powerful. Could you share any specific instance where this principle was particularly difficult to uphold? You know?
Yes. So most often we think that we are talking on behalf of somebody. We are being the voice for the voiceless, because that's the kind of thinking also that has gone into many of us as the NGOs, as advocates, as the people talking on behalf of those who are unable to articulate and put their stories forward. But from the beginning, I also learned that I cannot be everywhere. And it is not fair for me to be going and telling other people's stories, because I may not be saying it in the manner of a lived experience. So centering a story, centering an issue around a lived experience is very important. And I would like to share this one example. We work with a lot of women in the slums that we work in. And one of the things we tell the women is that it is not important for them to have gone to school and college and studied things. They need to understand what are the laws and what parts of the law is there to protect them. So we do a training that they can understand, and we translate the law to them in such a manner. One day, I had also gone out on another rescue out of Bangalore, so I was not there, and there was no way I could take the calls. And two of our other staff were in court because they were handling some other POXO case. So none of us were able to respond to the calls being made by the women in the slum. Later in the evening, I came back home by 7:30, and I switched on the local Kannada news to watch some news to see what happened today in Bangalore. And suddenly I thought I saw a couple of women whose faces were being portrayed over there. I said, I recognize these women. They are all from the slum where we are working in. What is happening? So I put the volume higher. And then the newsreader was saying that a group of women came with one of the victim survivors to register an FIR against her husband.
Wow.
And we were wondering, if you look at it, you will see, all of these slum women who've just finished their work, domestic workers, they have finished all of their work and they've come to the police station. I could see about 15, 16 of them. And then there was this lady, very well dressed and, her sari pinned and all that. But of course, looking very downtrodden and smiling and laughing with these women as she came out. So the newsreader was saying that these women had come with her to register a case of domestic violence and being thrown out of her home by her husband. Later, when we called up the next day and we went and asked the women what was the case all about, they said that this lady was a manager in one of the government offices and her husband was another officer in one of the government wings. And the police was not taking her case for the last 13 years because the man was a powerful person. So this lady had heard about an organization working in the slum for women, and the lady had come there. And the lady was not very, she was reluctant to speak about her problems to these women, saying, will they understand? But one of the women told her, why don't you just tell us what you're going through? And we will tell you what can be the next best course of action. So very reluctantly, she talked about her problems. And the women said, okay, so we will go to the station now. You say that your husband has thrown you out of the house. So first we'll go to your house. You go inside the house and somehow we will ensure that your husband comes outside the house. Then you lock the house. We go to the station, register a case, and then you ensure that he does not come back and file the case. From that case, what I realized is information and translating that courage, translating that confidence to others is very easy. If you are convinced of you have the courage of your own convictions, which you can translate to others, irrespective of who they are, where they come from, what religion or caste they belong to, and they become greater advocates. So when I was saying that, if I show fear, then that fear gets translated also over there. I did not show any of that fear. And these women said, oh, what if the police inspector tells us to get out? I said, you stand there and say, is this your house, sir? Because I have come to the police station. So what if he tells us to shut up? So you have to tell him, you have no right to ask me to shut up because I've come here to give you a complaint. And that your job is to take a complaint. So you understand what the law is, what's the constitution. You don't have to fight with him. You do not have to shout at that person. You just have to stick your ground and what your story is. And that is what, when you ask me this question, I was saying that, how did I learn this? Because those women came back and told us, we were looking at your face, because they had come with another case. We had gone to another police station and they said, when that policeman told, what are all of you crowding at this gate over here? Go away, go away. You just stood calmly and looked at him and said, how many of you are going to pass through this door? Because we are only 5 of us and we will stick ourselves to the wall and you can pass by. But you can't ask us to leave this place. And they said, we were so angry that he was talking so badly to you. You are our akka, you are our madam. And you were just telling him in a calm manner, but you showed no fear. So when you ask me this question, Gayatri, this is what I want to share, is to be centered with those lived experiences and self-determination. You do not want to be arrogant, but you want to tell them that you do not bully me around. And irrespective of the laws that they might quote, with humility, stand there and say, that's exactly what I've come here for. You are the authority to enforce that law, and I am here, the victim, to give you a complaint. So, a shift in our language and our demeanor works, because at the end of the day, again, we do not want to ruffle feathers, and I'm certainly not here to shatter egos. That is their problem, not mine.
Fantastic. So basically, you're saying the story should come from the horse's mouth. You don't translate it.
Yes.
Isn't it? And the importance of both body language and actual language, the words you
Absolutely.
use, like you said. So thanks a lot. It's such a powerful example. Thanks a lot. Doris, let me come to you. And here I wanted to pick on your experience to know that in your work helping women achieve financial liberation, what do you find are the most common psychological barriers that women face? Of course, I know you help men also. So, it's not that we have anything. In fact, I was just thinking, about diversity. Diversity is not men, women. It could be just Doris not wearing a bindi, me wearing a small bindi, you wearing a big bindi. It's just differences. It is not gender related at all. But in this case, it happens that more women are in the group which needs help. So, what are the common psychological barriers to this mindset and financial liberation?
Yes, and I have to confess that I have a special soft spot for the women when it comes to supporting them. During the week, I was listening to some statistic which said women are responsible for 80% of food purchases decisions. And you see, all of us, 8 billion people on the face of the planet, we eat. So, and one of the basic uses of financial resources, the reason why people are motivated to go to work is feeding themselves. And so it's worthwhile to give additional support to the women. And what I've seen to be an important psychological barrier when it comes to breaking out financially is the power that they have. I work with women that from their expression, from their demeanor, seem to lean towards the fact that somebody has to take action on their behalf. Somebody has to do it for them. And they come across as though they don't have any power within themselves to make progress towards that dream, that financial aspiration that they have. And why is this so important? Every one of us humans have that power when it comes to the choices that we make. And we also have that free will to dream, to aspire to something. And so financially, it's okay for a woman to aspire to a certain level of freedom, a certain level of access, resourcefulness, and then to set an objective that they can work towards. If we feel stripped of that power to do that basic thing of dreaming, aspiring to something, then we feel disempowered to set goals, which goals will now motivate us to take additional actions that will take us closer to the desires which we have. I believe that there's a certain social system or construct that influences women this way, to think that they are powerless, to feel that they need to depend on another. And let me use the binary categorization. We have women and we have men. And so if a woman is feeling that they have no power to work towards that financial freedom which they desire, then they feel compelled to wait for a man, or they feel compelled to depend on a man, which often gives rise to abuse, which often give rise to the potential of these women not being fully harnessed. Because each one of us, male, female, men, women, are put on the face of the planet and here in the universe to contribute to make it a better place. Now, if we come to the table with that mindset that we are powerless, we cannot help ourselves, we cannot do anything, then we don't dream. We wait for somebody to dream for us. Then we don't set any tangible objectives, goals, targets that will inspire us to wake up every morning and to go take a particular action. We don't feel that the choices that we are making can make a difference, contributing to that which we aspire. So in my working with the women, I will take them back to their childhood. I will take them to what kind of experiences they've had. I also walk them through their own experiences, what they believe and think about money, what they think about themselves. One very important area I also work with women on is their sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Sometimes you work with women that have their self-esteem and sense of self-worth tied to money. And you need to work with them to come to the understanding that money is only a social construct. And the relationships that we have with people and how much value we are able to create in ourselves, that will make people willing to exchange something for the value that we are given is probably more important than the currency notes and coins which we have in our hand. Now, a woman that is confident in their abilities, their skill sets, the fact that they are able to create some value, whether it's to make somebody look more beautiful, whether it's to decorate a room, to change the ambience, whether it is to prepare wholesome food for others, whether it's to nurture children and bring them up. If they can begin to see their value, their sense of self-worth in who they are as humans, who have a potential, who have a capacity to contribute to the universe, then they are already on their way to being financially successful because it boosts their confidence. It makes them voice up what they feel, what they think, what they aspire. It makes them willing to negotiate. It makes them willing to ask for something back for what value or contribution that they are making. I see this to be the most important psychological hurdle to overcome. One, being their sense of self-worth and feeling that they are powerful as a human being, just being a human being. It doesn't matter the level of qualification, certificates they've amassed, just being a human being and having a certain sense of self-worth is the beginning to financial freedom.
Yeah, so I have a small question or rather a query. So what happens sometimes, may not with you, we talk to the women, give them a feeling of self-worth, and as long as they are with us, they have that. They go back to their environment and that the social constructs take over again. So the social constructs have a very long-lasting effect. So how do you, draw them out in a consistent manner so that there are no back and forth?
Two things are very important. The first is self-affirmation. Whatever awareness, whatever realization they have come to, it's important that when they come back to the system that they belong to, that they keep reflecting back, reciting, telling themselves of what they now know and believe. That's the first important thing to keep them anchored to their new belief, understanding, and awareness. The second way to keep themselves within the system but growing is to build a little, if you like, system within the bigger system. So a community is priceless, where they may share their beliefs with a sister, with a daughter, with an auntie, with a mother, and then the circle sort of expands. And within this little circle, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, and growing women who reason along certain lines, who have certain strong convictions, even within the bigger system. Now, because the belief sort of paralyzes the women, when these women have their affirmations and they are providing a sense of support for each other, they no longer are as paralyzed as the other women within the system who have not this kind of awareness, who haven't made these discoveries. So these two are very important. Self-affirmations, what conversation they have on the inside with themselves, And the second part is a certain small community of support system, women who understand, who believe, and who hold hands with each other, stand by and with each other to forge ahead, to take actions that liberate them, that makes their lives better. Knowing very well that as they become financially free and they thrive and their lives become better, they are not the only people that benefit. When a woman is financially well off and they are preparing a wholesome meal, the whole family, men included, are going to enjoy that. If it is a certain level of hygiene, sanitary conditions that prevail around them, everybody that comes within, around, and near them is going to enjoy this level of quality of life because of the sanitation, which they are able to enjoy because of this woman feeling financially free. Thank you.
I think I can see Brinda, affirming some of the, things you're talking about in terms of self-help group, etc. Let me come to Brinda and ask you a question. Of course, like I said, the way you were talking about, all those self-validation and all, you're a born coach, I think. So since we have a lot of executive coaches in our audience, what is most helpful, or what is your advice to coaches in terms of your approaches from your advocacy group, especially around creating empathy and challenging the systemic injustice? So like Doris said, making them feel powerful, because you feel powerless, but somebody else makes you feel that you have the power, a lot can change. So what would be your advice from your work to coaches? Because of course we are not dealing with maybe the same kind, but many of us are here because we do want to make a bigger social impact than just that little, coaching for some goals.
It's not so much of an advice as much as I want to share about my own experiences and the experiences of women that we work with. And like Doris pointed out, we are concerned and worried and bothered about human rights violations of all people: children, women, trans persons, men, senior citizens. But again, like Doris pointed out, there is a particular affinity towards women because we know that they suffer the most. And because we live in a deeply patriarchal society with almost all institutions which are also deeply patriarchal, including the state, women, irrespective of their accomplishments, achievements, educational qualifications, and the tremendous amount of hard work that they put in, are still relegated to different pockets and corners, whether in our homes or in our communities. How do we create empathy? Now, we know that we are always told, as professionals, as counselors, as social workers, as doctors, as HR professionals, you must show empathy. Somewhere, that show of empathy remains a show. And the person who is on the other side, probably at the receiving end or on the opposite side, can make out that it is a show. And my entire counter to this is, don't wait for that empathy from somebody else. Because only when the person respects you, only when this person respects the situation that you come from or you've been forced into, and only when that person understands that whatever situation you have been put into is not your own doing. It might be our limitations, it might be our drawbacks, but not something that I would have purposely put myself into that position. And here I want to share one example that I like, a case study or an example, because I sit as a IC external member on several companies, posh IC. POSH is Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace, and IC is the internal committee. And the law mandates that every IC must have 3 to 5 people, and one person has to be an external person. So I sit as an external person on several companies IC. I go on the premise that the companies, all companies, are bothered and concerned to keep the spaces, environment in the companies safe for all people, especially for women, and make it a place that is respectful and there are dignified interactions. So that is the premise I believe everybody comes through. But sometimes I have found that when cases come up, the person on the other side who's actually sitting on the IC, the psychodynamics and the power play is very strong. How do you talk to these people and tell them what you're doing is not right? Because she has come and made a complaint, and the complaint is not easy. Believe me, no matter what anybody tells you, irrespective of our financial independence, irrespective of the positions that we might hold in any of the offices, irrespective of the caste or religion or language or region that we come from, it's always difficult to bring this issue of sexual harassment as a complaint or even a concern before the mandated officers or before the mandated designated person. And when we do bring it, it's so difficult to describe because in such situations, there are no CCTV cameras. Rarely, 85 to 90% of the time, we do not have proof that we can show to the other person. For instance, the way the person looks at you, looks at your face, looks down at your breasts and looks down in that demeaning manner. What is the proof you can show? What is it that you can say that here is the evidence? So in these instances, we expect empathy from the other side. Now that doesn't come. And that is why I reiterate what Doris said and what you also spoke about, Gayatri, is to be so strong in your weak moment, to say, this happened to me. I didn't ask for it, but it happened to me. And no matter what, whether you believe me or not, I'm here to talk about it. So I will empathize with myself, with the situation that I was forced into, that I was pushed into. So first empathize with yourself. And I believe that that kindness and that compassion and love, I must first show to myself. Because if I can show it to myself, I believe in myself. And then I go out there with that conviction to say, how dare you not believe me? So empathy is something that must and should be yours to take, yours to hold on to. And then if the other side empathizes, well and good, it's additional. There is a shoulder that I can, lean on. There's somebody who is listening to me and not hearing me because it is a job that has to be done. So when Gayatri asked me this question, how do you tell the other person to be empathetic? How can I be empathetic when I am all the time finding fault with myself because I've grown up in that kind of a patriarchal internalization where I'm constantly somebody telling me that I'm not okay, that I'm wrong, that I am not fit for whatever. And I learned to be that. And I tell myself all this. But then, because of some academic qualifications, I get into a position and I become somebody with power doing the same thing to another person. That's why it's important. First, I empathize with myself. I become compassionate to me. I know I might, it sounds cliched, but just remember that you are your best friend. I am my best friend. And from there,
I agree.
protocol and process, we go forward with complaints. In this particular case I'm talking about is the complaints, because you want to bring that perpetrator to justice.
I agree with you. Empathy has to start with self. And just like reflection, we keep asking our clients to reflect. self-reflection, and then they will reflect, because if you have done self-reflection, then getting them to reflect is easier. I'm going to come to Doris and ask her a question on executive coaching. Many of us we have situations where we have to help clients overcome not only their financial blind spot, but sometimes even their organizational challenges. So for executive coaches in our audience today, what are the specific frameworks which you have found effective in helping clients overcome financial blind spots? And how have you adapted it for executives leading organizations through financial challenges?
Thank you very much. So I'll start from the executive coaching side, and then I will extend it to the firm or the company or business as a whole. So I work with one of my clients, and it's different levels of intensity I've experienced with different clients. But I require them to do stock taking. So you take stock currently of all the debts that you owe, that you have to pay to somebody. And you also do a listing of assets that you have, resources that you can turn around and use to generate additional income. And oftentimes, clients are surprised sometimes that they owe so much, and also sometimes surprised that they actually had so much they didn't know. So this is more or less opening up that blind spot to them of how much they actually either had as debt owing or something that they possessed that they were not aware of. Another area that I've seen people open up their blind spot is journaling. So I encourage them, usually leading up to the stock taking. Many of them have not tracked, so they don't know. So they would journal for a month or 3 months. And the journaling is when I journal it. Moments when I have had negative outlook about my finances, they've journaled it. And moments when they have felt strongly positive. They also journal that. End of a 1 month period or at the end of a 3 month period, there is a trend which has built up. And the trends become so revealing. Sometimes the sources of the financial stress, sometimes identify wasn't just, but there was something connected to their personal values or priorities in life, which sort of emphasized how much they were feeling this financial stress. So then they may discover it wasn't just about the money, but it's about a certain value that or priority at stake. And then some of them are saying that we all inherently know how to spend money. What we don't all know is how to earn it. And so they are sometimes surprised the different avenues through which money that came into their hands left their hands. And the light goes on and they begin to realize, okay, some people using multiple phones that they have to keep charged, sometimes in the kind of amount of time they spend, the value they generate in the conversations they were having, time on social media, how it distracted them from being productive in other areas, impulse purchases, where they made purchases before realizing that they actually did not need what they purchased and the like. So this is on the individual level. And I've made reference to the use of journaling and also doing stock taking as avenues to open up blind spots that they have. There are other tools that I use that I believe are also common to other coaches. Reframing sometimes you're working with a client who uses statements and references that are disempowering, that we can encourage them to reframe it in a more positive, in a more empowering way, so that they can move ahead with that positive energy. Objective setting, financial planning, all these are tools that have helped them to overcome, get into their blind spot, and then forge their way towards liberation. Some of these tools are also applicable when you bring it to your business. Whereas on the individual side, we talk about journaling. When it comes to your business, and most large corporates already would have record keeping as a serious activity. Usually it's for the smaller businesses and startups that may take for granted the value of record keeping. Record keeping would serve as the journaling that an individual in an executive coaching scenario would do. And if you don't have the expertise to keep good records, I always recommend that you work with a professional. And there are also a number of software that you can use to help you keep track of how money is flowing into your business, small or big, and how money is flowing out of the business. It helps you come to realizations and awareness that inform the decisions and the choices you make in such a way that you can navigate and guide your business towards profitability, growth, and sustainability. And then there is the bit of financial planning. When you have taken the time, so on the executive coaching side, is the tool of budgeting that they would use to take charge of their finances. For businesses as well, you have the business budget, more importantly, a bigger financial plan for where you want to take the business to, your projections for at least 3 years, what actions you are going to take to generate inflows, what investments you need to make in order to generate those inflows, and what are other necessary expenditures, including regulatory expenditures that you need to make. Planning all of these in advance helps you have better control of the running of your business so that you are able to navigate towards the outcomes that you desire. In both cases, you should have financial objectives set, and these objectives will follow the SMART: being specific, being measurable, being ambitious. Some people say attainable. I like to say ambitious. It must stretch you so that you are growing through the process. And then some people say realistic. I say relevant. How is this action you are taking going to contribute towards the good of the bigger society? How is it contributing towards the fulfillment of your own life purpose? So it has to be relevant. It should make a difference. And then, of course, it has to be time-bound. I'll leave that here. Thank you.
So there is a question about, this is, I hope I'm still pronouncing the name properly, Mami. And she's saying that she's accomplished many things, which she's very proud of, but still questioning herself and finding it difficult to value her own skills. What would you recommend to such a person as a new coach, executive, professional mother? I'll put that to both Brinda. Let me come to Brinda maybe in a very short, we have about 6 minutes. I need to give 2 minutes to Yamini. So what would you suggest, to someone who is questioning themselves and finding it difficult to value their skills in spite of having done a lot? Brinda?
I thought Doris is responding first. Okay.
No, you're right. She's been talking, so I'll give it to you and then I'll ask.
Okay, thank you. So the person who was asking me this question, are you working towards, or you are trying to accomplish other people's aspirations or your own? Because it makes sense to write this down. Very often we have grown up with people telling us what we should be, what we should do, what we must not do, what we are fit for. But at the end of the day, you want to touch your heart and ask yourself, what do I like to do? I like to do embroidery. I like to paint. I like to work with figures because math is my forte. What do I want to do? I want to be a speaker, a stage speaker. You choose and decide. And then you ask yourself, should I even cater to all the others that have been, constantly talking about, oh, but you're so and so, why don't you do this, so do it? Because we need to understand that often we are grappling with our own internal complexities. The oppressive structures that are all around us, both visible and invisible. And oftentimes, rationally, we tell ourselves, I don't care. But somewhere we do care. Maybe because we are constantly waiting for somebody else to tell us you did good. That was something that I expected of you. I didn't expect this of you. So these are also questions we want to ask. They're difficult questions because there are times when I have had people come up to me and tell me, I didn't think you could shout so loudly and be so harsh to that person. I said that that person was not listening to stuff that I was trying to explain. And at one point, the person got disrespectful, and I had to shout and tell that person, you dare not treat me like that. And so how do I tell? Please don't treat me like that. You dare not treat me like that. I don't like it. If I did that, that person wasn't going to keep quiet. So you want to say, when is it that you contextualize yourself in that position to say, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm happy doing it. I must not subscribe to somebody else's ambitions and what they think is essential. What mine might be very simple essentials, and I must have the courage to say, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm doing it. I'm sorry if the other person didn't like it. A. B, if you think that you on a list of 5, 8 goals, 10 goals, you've yet to accomplish 4 more, then you want to look at it and say, okay, when you were 20 years old, these goals looked good. Now I'm 45. How do I want to look at these goals? Maybe very apt, maybe pertinent, but might have a different perspective to that same goal. So go back and look at it. But again, measure it, weigh it, and choose it in your context today, because that is your essential, and nothing else should waver you otherwise, because the knowledge and the value of what you want to accomplish is yours alone. Even if you sometimes want to listen to somebody, sometimes we say our mother has our best interest in our heart, our sister has our best interest in our heart, our father, our family, our good friend, some neighbor, my boyfriend, my husband, my partner. I don't know, it could be anybody, but they don't know you so much as you know you. Nobody knows me as well as I know myself. And I must be happy with whatever I want to do. That happiness is something that we often forget, trying to live up to others.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Doris to take 30 seconds because we're almost running out of time, and tell us what she thinks is important.
Thank you. So I think this is where opening the inner eye comes in. The question I would like to share with somebody like that is, who said you have to qualify or justify to have your sense of self-worth? The basic condition for you to have a sense of self-worth, to feel you have a right to be here, that you belong, is just the mere fact that you are here. That's the beauty of the universe. Every one of us pieces right here, right now, have a right to be here, and we do make a difference being here. Now it's up to us as individuals to accept that, to embrace that. We don't need to do anything at all to qualify to be worthy. We are worthy as we are. The other things that we may do, whatever accomplishments we may record against our names, they are just extras supposed to make a difference, to benefit others. But our sense of self-worth is intact just by the mere fact that we are human beings. And it doesn't matter whether we are physically challenged or we have any peculiar challenges. Just the mere fact that you are categorized as a human being is enough for you to be assured that you have a right to a sense of self-worth like every other person on the face of the planet. So go ahead, embrace it, tell yourself, and I mentioned that this is where the inner eye comes in, because sometimes we just don't step back to kick out all the distractions, the noise, the lies coming to us, so that we at peace can listen to ourselves and hear that voice that is telling us that, yes, we are worthy and that we have a right to belong and to be here like everybody else. So just practice that habit, make some time, step back from the distractions and listen to that voice and be assured you are worthy. Thank you.
I'll just speak one sentence and give it over to Yamini, and thank you for holding on for a little time. I think both of you have demonstrated how combining heart-centered approaches and looking inward and feeling your own self-worth, combined with practical solutions and knowing that you have decided to do something, not that you have been forced to do something. You looked at the circumstances and think of every action as your decision, not something which you're forced to, is something which really helps in creating a lot of change within and then with the outside. I'll hand it over to Yamini, and thank you for holding on with us for so long. Yamini?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Brinda. Thank you, Doris. It was so empowering to hear from you and have this session today. And thank you, everybody in the audience who joined us for this webinar. And we hope to see you in our next webinar very soon. For any questions about our programs, please do reach out to us at support@coacharya.com, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, and Yamini will be sharing a blog in which we will have Brinda and Doris's LinkedIn URLs and also the company's websites. So please do keep in touch and volunteer, especially if you're in India and in Bangalore. You can volunteer with Brinda. Yes.
You're most welcome to volunteer.
Yes. So thanks a lot for your time, and thank you to all the participants for your patience and your remarks and comments. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night.